Caroline. I'm so glad to see you back again. We're making great progress. You talked about, I know we were talking about your drinking and, you're moving towards, kind of minimizing your drinking because you want to be more effective for your children. And I know you also talked about how, just in case of a divorce, you want to make sure you have your ducks in a row. Um, but I just wanted to see what has been happening since the last time we met.
Well, we've kind of begun officially, papers have been filed and everything. There's no court or anything. We're still kind of in the process of meeting with everybody. So, but I think I'm getting a little more adjusted to the single mother lifestyle. It's still stressful and, an adjustment, but I think I'm getting the handle of it more, kind of getting more control over the situation and feeling less stressed at the end of the day.
Yeah, I know you talked about in the previous session that, when you become a single parent, you want to definitely start minimizing your drinking.
Yeah, I think it's important that if I'm going to be the only parent there, that I'm always available to my children, and if I'm drinking, I'm not as available to them, or I'm going to be impeded by the alcohol, and I'm not going to be able to help them as much as I normally would. And that's the big important thing for me is to be there for my children and help them in every way I possibly can.
Right. And what would make you more confident in making these changes?
It's just kind of hard to give up something that I've been, it's kind of been a habit of mine to have a glass or two or, sometimes three of wine at night, and it's kind of hard to I'm like during the day, I'm like, I'm only going to have one glass tonight or one, but then, when I get there, it's kind of like, well, the bottle's already open. So I'm just kind of scared almost that I'm gonna, not be able to do this. And I don't know, maybe having a support system or just someone who knows what I'm going through. I don't think like AA or anything, but just someone who also is, maybe another single mom or, just making a few friends that really understand what I'm trying to do.
Right. So you talked about, if you had someone to talk to, just about, or somebody that can relate to you, this will kind of help you in the change process.
Yeah, like most of my friends now, they're still married. If they do have kids, they're married, and even if they don't have kids, they're doing their own thing. They're not responsible for two other people's lives or anything. And I don't know. I think the single parent life is kind of an adjustment. I think it would be helpful if I knew some other single parents.
Okay, and so on a scale from 0 being like the least important and then 10 being the most important, how confident are you on a scale of 0 to 10 to change?
I'm probably at a 6 or 7. I'd be willing to do anything for my kids, but at the same time, it's kind of hard to give up a habit that I've had for so long. So I'm kind of, I'm confident I can do it. I just don't, I don't want to fail. I'm afraid of, messing up or, letting my kids down.
Right. And you're afraid that, also, you talked about how you're afraid that your husband might use this. You guys are on a paper process. You don't want to use this. And then, too, you want to be a good parent and an alert parent for your children.
Yeah, I don't want to do anything that could jeopardize the custody of my children. And, I want to be the person that my kids can always turn to. I don't want them to think of me as, oh, I could call mom, but, maybe she's had too many glasses of wine to come pick me up from somewhere. But I want them to know that, I'm always there, I'm ready to help.
Right. So how can you move up higher from a score, say a 7, to like an 8?
To get to a 7 or 8, I think one thing that would help would be if this divorce was just over. I would feel a lot, there'd be a lot less stress on me to change my patterns, and I would know it's not going to affect my parenting. But I think another thing that would really, help boost my confidence was to just kind of talk to someone else maybe who has maybe even just completely stopped drinking, to you know, how did they do it and how did they go through it, and also just kind of have somebody who knows what it's like to try to give up drinking.
Right. And how can I help you succeed?
Well, I think, you know, you're kind of a support system for me right now. You're someone that I can talk to about this and who's willing to listen to me. And I don't ever feel very judged by you at all, so I feel pretty comfortable with talking to you. But I don't know, do you know any like single mothers or something like that, or any organizations or groups that, you know, kind of have single mothers or maybe something with alcoholism related?
Yeah, and definitely, you know, I know you talked about just having resources, and we can definitely go over some resources at the end, and to make sure that you continue, because you're really changing you seem more confident in changing than the last time we met.
Yeah, I think so. I think the most important thing for my confidence in this situation is really just knowing that I have a support system. You know, like my big support system, it was my family and my husband, and you know that's kind of it's not there anymore. So it's kind of I don't know. I feel a little lost at times, even just in daily activities. I don't have that one person or that it's an adjustment.
Yeah, it's definitely, as you talked about, you said it's definitely an adjustment. Is there anything you find helpful in any previous attempts to change?
Well, you know, I did right after the divorce. My drinking increased, or not the divorce, but right after the separation. I started drinking a little more. You know, it was more like 3 or 4 glasses of wine a night, and I don't know, something that kind of helped me was making a nighttime ritual with my kids. Now I read them a story before bed. So instead of that extra 30, 45 minutes that I'm reading, that's since I'm reading instead of drinking. So that helped me a lot, I think, before, just kind of having setting up a different nightly ritual.
Right, and then you talked about like setting up something different so you could replace that with, not drinking. So, what have you learned from the way things when things went wrong?
Well, I've always had a glass or two of wine at night, and then it kind of increased with the divorce or the separation, and a lot of that was about stress and like just kind of feeling alone and everything, and a lot of more like negative feelings. So I kind of seen that my drinking kind of correlates with my feelings a lot too, where it's kind of like on a day where I've had a lot more stress than normal, or I've had a kind of a bad day or whatever, I tend to want to drink more. So I feel like that's kind of a trigger almost, the stress or the negative emotions.
Right, so you talked about how the stress is really the stress and the negative emotions that you receive or you have causes you to drink during those hours at night.
Yeah, it makes me want to, drink more or, not stop drinking because it kind of is like, well, I'm dealing with all of this, so why don't I deserve a drink? So it kind of makes me justify my drinking a little more too.
Right. So if you were to change, what might your options be?
Well, if I were to change, I could have more time with my kids at night, have that. I'd also be, a little healthier. Alcohol it's you can get some serious damage to your body with alcohol, so that would be a positive change in my life. I could, we talked about yoga a little bit. I could kind of try to bring that into my daily routine to kind of help release those negative emotions, so maybe it would decrease my urges to drink.
Right. You talked about yoga, how that kind of, it comes to like the health and wellness, and that will kind of help you not drink. What are some of the practical things you need to do to achieve your goal to like minimize and then
I think one of the big things I need to do is I need to set up a support system that I can count on. My mom was an alcoholic, so I don't think I could really use her because she never really wanted to stop, and so I don't think she would understand But maybe if I had some friends that understood what it was like to be a single parent, or some, friends that understood what it was like to kind of deal with alcohol abuse almost, just so I could have someone who could understand my feelings and what I'm going through.
So you talked about that if you have friends that or people that you can surround yourself that understand where you're coming from, that also is kind of like a support system. So you're looking for much more of like a support system.
Yeah, I think that's really what would help me to feel more confident and to adhere to the whole reducing my drinking. I think that's the really important kind of component that I'm missing right now.
Is there anything that you could think of that would help you feel more confident?
Well, I mentioned the support system, but also just kind of knowing that I could give it up. I've never really tried to give up alcohol before, and so just knowing that I could would make me feel a lot more confident in myself.
So knowing that you can do it makes you more confident, and do any of the things that you talked about, the practicalities, do they sound achievable?
I think, especially starting off with just reducing my 2 glasses of wine to 1, I think that's definitely a realistic goal. I think I can definitely, limit myself to 1 glass a night because, I'm still getting some, still having 1 glass of wine. So I think that I would be able to stop it there. And then, maybe kind of weaning it down to not every night, kind of doing it step by step. I think that seems more realistic to me than just kind of stopping cold turkey.
Well, I thank you. This is definitely the end of our next session. I think I see you being a lot more confident, and thank you again, and I'll see you next week.
Thank you.